Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and begin our community development meeting. Today's date is October 23rd, 2025. The time is 10 a.m. In attendance is our Commissioner Eberline and Matari. Duncan is excused today on travel. I want to call this meeting to order. There's no chairman opening remarks. Are there any changes to the agenda? I do have one, as directed by our Community Development Director, to remove item number 1. So without objection, we'll remove that. And poll for conflicts of interest. None. No public hearing, no deliberations. We're going right into business. It'll be item number 2, 2025 year-end review. It's a discussion item, and we will begin with Craig Davidson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Craig Davidson, Deputy Director, Community Development for Operations. I thought I'd take this time, since we just wrapped up fiscal year 2025, to kind of go through our divisions, our accomplishments, and where we've stood as of today and where we're going for the future. So I brought all of our division managers in. Of course, you know Ben Tarbutton. To his left is Garrett Kenny. He's our front counter planning supervisor. And then George Sepulveda with code compliance. This is the agenda. I'll discuss the end-of-year budget issues as well as the building. Chris isn't here. She's on leave. Ben will discuss some current planning factors, and Garrett will discuss front counter operations, and George will follow up with the completion of Code Compliance Division. So here's where we were for the last 3 years, the end-of-year budget. 2023, we were at a deficit of $51,985. Better last year. And this year, there's the number where we fell at the end of the year. Some of the savings in the following areas were personnel. We did save quite a bit in personnel. Travel, what was projected. Our consultant fees, we were able to save some there. And then one of the big issues for savings were subscriptions. Idaho did not adopt the 2024 building code. And we have to, all the ICC books that come with that, that's about $5,000 for our building division as an expense. Our revenues, based on what we were projected, were well up. Code compliance was at 177%, building was 123%, and then planning was 147%. Now that's up projected. I'll discuss the building division specifics and the metrics we had for 2025 and 24 in comparison. Total permits, as you can see on the screen, 25 was 2799, and we were a little up, well, quite a bit up from 2024. The key issue probably that's of most interest, we've basically come down in several categories for the reviews. Thanks, Ben. Here's where we are, average days of completion to issued 2025, which is substantially down from 2024's 45. The big issue is our goal was single-family residences was 30 days. We're at 50 on whole as an average. We've come down from a total of 83 days in 2024, which was, that's quite a substantial change, average of all the permits that we have. End of January, our goal is 40. Our target is 30, and we want to be there by May of this year. We've got some work to do. We've got the metrics in place. It's some of the review processes we've discussed amongst ourselves with the bottlenecks, and that's basically reciprocating reviews for deficiencies and corrections that are needed. As a comparison, that's basically the chart of what we've talked about. So as you can see, we're down substantially. Other than commercial structures, we had a great deal more commercial structures this year and more complex in detail. So we are a bit up on that, but everything else, we've fallen quite well in terms of where our metrics shows us where we need to be.
Do you have an idea why?
Why we've reduced it?
No, why with our building permit versus
What those are is those are the average days. So to the left scale, that's the number of days that we have set up for our metrics in terms of the broad spectrum category of all the permits. In the bottom axis, oh, sorry about that.
commercial.
So these are the statuses that we have in the metrics along the permitting process. So if you got submission to completion, that's the initial stage when somebody comes in the door, gives us an application, to the point where it's sufficient enough to move on through the review process, which goes from the completion of that permit and everything's being basically evaluated, reviewed, to issuance. And those are the average number of days based on what I gave you for all permits, including mechanical.
What may not be coming through is that the reduction in the goal is a good thing. That means it's taking us less time
Yes.
to review these things. And the answer to your question is because all of these people are working smarter, more efficiently, and helping applicants get through the process.
Well, and Ben will probably talk about some of the education process that's gone on for projects too, that fall in line with the building permits as well. But by in hand, we've got,
I was actually thinking about the building in an entity all complete. So because you have there's a lot of people that moved in here.
right.
And so again, there's more things that are going to happen with, what do I want to say? With commercial.
Sorry, I'm not getting your question.
I understand that.
So in terms of commercial activity, you're exactly correct. We have seen a big increase in that. And several hangars to boot have actually come in addition to some of the other commercial aspects of, they're more the condo-style buildings for the most part, big metal structures that are kind of minimized for businesses. And you're right. The reason I bring this slide to you, basically kind of, the key thing is what's in the yellow highlights, basically shows the number of permits for that value range of builds. This is inclusive of all commercial, manufactured, mechanical, residential, retaining. Interestingly enough, we've had 7 permits of over $2 million this past fiscal year, which is up from the previous years.
Commercial or otherwise?
Commercial, modular, most of them are. And there's been some houses up there too. There's some pretty interesting builds on some houses too. We've got several large projects and houses that have gone on. The $1 million to $2 million range, there's been 38 permits for those. And Commissioner Eberline, to your point on that, up to the 2 million, it's 2 commercial building permits and 5 residential permits. So the majority of those were residential, just larger commercial projects. So it isolates that. But we've seen an uptick in some of the larger projects coming in as well. This is kind of, I know it's a busy chart. It's basically all the inspections that we do, and you'll see 2024 to 25. We've actually had a decrease of about 1,080 inspections between the 2 years, and this is a month-by-month basis. And the reason for that is, even though we have 8 inspectors, what we've done is, the way IMS works is each inspection has to be scheduled, and there's a cap that you establish daily, 55 to 65, depending on the workload. Well, we've bundled the inspections. So what we're doing is we're economizing our inspector force to be able to conduct multiple inspections at one point. What this has done for us, and especially on the inspection end for re-inspections, if there's been failures or partial passes, it's allowed the inspectors to actually manage their permits and go back around, re-inspect to keep the project moving. So it's freed them up that way. We've economized the use of the force and allowing the consolidation of the inspections to be able to move forward. So that's why you'll see the difference in those numbers. Well, with that, I will turn this over to Ben for Planning Division.
Thanks, Craig. Ben Tarbutton, Planning Manager for the record. So as a general trend of a summary of what you're going to see here is that there's some fluctuation from the different projects that we receive, and that's not unique from year to year. Some years are higher for subdivisions than others, and so on. But the general trend or summary of this slide is that the total here is we're up 3.6% from what we were last year on total projects received. we'll kind of get in some synopsis of this slide here a little bit later on, but with the change of family divisions and the addition of family divisions, of course, we see a rise in those. We see a drop in minor subdivisions as a result. But again, overall, we're looking at plus 3% or so on our overall projects. Same kind of thing with what you're seeing here. This is just an outline of that in a graph form. As Craig kind of started with the building side, this is kind of showing what we've had for the time frame from submitted to when the application is actually determined to be complete. In large part, I think what you're going to see, the red text or the red bars are 2024, the orange are 2025. I think from some of the training that we've done, specifically with subdivision applications, we've seen better applications overall, which has allowed staff to get to those applications quicker, which in turn gets those minor subdivisions to the end result sooner for the applicant, and that's appreciated by everybody. And then from complete to close, again, same general trend. You see that our numbers are down from what they were last year. The red being 2024, the orange being 2025. In general, it is kind of that trend. And then just an overall, from submit, the time the application comes into the door to the time it's actually closed, it follows that same trend. This is kind of summary from that first slide. Again, 3.6% increase overall. Some of the key or the outliers here, variances, or the admin variances are up 80%. Major subdivision finals are up 100%. Just kind of more of a completion of what was already preliminarily approved are what those final applications are. Zone changes up approximately 30%. Pre-apps up approximately 6%. Some of the decreases, the cottage industries and the administrative projects, those are fluctuating from year to year, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint that specific trend. But the special notice permits, I will make a point of is that's largely in part to some code amendments we did. You may recall that we changed our code to eliminate the need for a special notice permit for personal storage buildings and also for cargo containers. Therefore, as a result, we have less special notice permits. It costs the applicant less money to get those developments, turn around those permits in less time. So that has been appreciated by the public as well. And then, like I said before, the minor subdivisions being down 25%, but again, largely due to the addition or the introduction to the family divisions. So that, I think, is kind of what I wanted to mention. So I'll pass it on to Garrett.
Commissioners, if I could just make a quick note also. Pat Braden, Civil Deputy Prosecutor for the record. I just wanted to note that appeals, you notice it was 0 in 24 and I think 2 in 25. I think that's attributable to the desire of this department and myself to, get things legally correct, get it right legally. And I think for the most part we succeed in that, which I think is manifest in those, in the low numbers of appeals that we see.
All right, Garrett Kenny, Planner 3 for the record. I'm going to go over kind of what we see on the front counter end of things relating to our planners that process permits. So one aspect of what we do is customer service related. Fielding phone calls, fielding walk-ins, performing inspections out in the field. This first point here, about 600 voicemails per planner. There's 6 of us currently on staff. This is a very conservative number. We each keep a pretty detailed call log on purely voicemails that we can't answer in the moment that we return. The goal is within 24 hours, so 1 business day. And so in addition to that is all the phone calls that we do answer. Also, walk-in customers. Each of us has a day during the week where we're on what we call walk-in duty. Roughly 7 customers a day come in on those days. Sometimes those are quick questions, sometimes those are more detailed questions that take up to 30 minutes to an hour. And then there's kind of a breakdown of some of the inspections relating to site disturbance permits that we do. A small number of initial inspections and progress inspections, and then quite a few final inspections. Overall permit reviews this year was about 2,700. And then also site disturbance reviews and floodplain development reviews, several hundred of those as well. This slide addresses the return for correction rate on permits that we review. So that's both building permits, residential, commercial, and then site disturbance as well. You can see that most of these points are increased a few percent from 2024. And I largely believe that's probably due to us cracking down, for lack of a better term, on quality of site plans. So we have more accurate information as far as utilities, property lines, distances from proposed and existing structures to property lines, and things like that, all of which the code requires, which we have been more lenient in the past, but trying to be more in line with code requirements in today's date. This slide generally goes over approval rates for, again, commercial and building permits. So in 2024, you can see the average approval timeline for dwellings, single-family residence was around 8 days. This year, that was around 6 days, so a couple-day improvement there. And also, you can see shave the day off of commercial review timelines as well. And this is just a chart of that prior slide, kind of showing the increase in efficiency as far as those review timelines go for dwellings and then commercial buildings. This is a pretty cool site that we got to see some good remediation take place on. This picture shows what a landowner had done without a permit, which resulted in a code violation. They had installed some Cree-seat soaked railroad ties into, I believe this was a Class 1 stream over in the Cougar Gulch area. And subsequently, we got a site disturbance permit for remediation. And then this is the end result there. Once they removed those railroad ties, reseeded with natural vegetation there within the stream banks. And it's looking great. This is one of the better remediation projects we've seen in the county, at least in my time here. So I think that includes what I've got. Off to George.
Morning, Commissioners. George Sepulveda, Code Compliance Officer 2 for the record. Wrong way. This is Code Compliance's performance metrics for 2025. As you can see, so far we've had 307 open cases. We've managed to close 293 cases. That's a culmination of both this year's and previous year's closures. And our average case resolution time is around 35 days. There is a backlog. We currently have 695 total open cases, and that's going back to, I believe, 2007 is the earliest case we have still on the record. This year, we've managed to collect 177% of our projected. We're projected for 26,880, and to date we're at 47,539. Here it shows what I spoke to previously. We've had 307 with total case close of 293 and the average case resolution time of 35 days. From complaint to CV, we've had a total of, this is a 5-year metric, it goes back to 2021. In 2021, we had around 63 unfounded complaints and 574 code violations. This year, we're at 68 unfounded, and at 307 open cases, or new cases, excuse me. Average days from complaint to investigation. In 2021, we were averaging around 7 days from the time we received a complaint till we actually open up the investigation. This year, we're at 3 days from the time we get a complaint, and that can vary anything from we receive it either late Friday, weekends and holidays obviously don't count, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but we're striving to get everything out on the same day. When we get a complaint, to open up an active investigation that same day. Five-year history on the violation types. The majority of our violations do come from the building side, either unpermitted structures, could be a permit violation or some type of expired permits. Site disturbances are also pretty high on the list, where people start site disturbances without a permit, or they're a permit violation, or they have inadequate BMPs. And that's a majority of our calls. Zoning ordinances, a lot of what we're getting is the occupied RVs. So we get a lot of that type of zoning type of stuff. IPMC is pretty minor. IPMC is more of rubbish and garbage on properties. Those are pretty minute in the sense of we don't really quote the IPMC much. It's usually not required.
You might explain what IPMNC is.
Oh, I'm sorry. The IPMC is the International Property Maintenance Code, which deals with rubbish and garbage throughout a property. Most of the times we get really good compliance with that. They'll clean up the property, and we're able to go out and verify and close out that case pretty quickly for the most part. Average time on those is within 2 weeks. So we've gotten really good response once we do issue a code violation or a courtesy notice for that. And this is just a comparison, complaints and closure rates. The complaint to CV closure, as it shows on this bottom one, 2021, we're around 219 days from the complaint to the actual closure. Here in 2025, again, we're at 35 days. So you can show it has shown us a downward trend. 2022 and 2023 were pretty close, between 129 and 143.
George, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea how many code violation cases are resolved after you send a courtesy notice, but before a formal notice of violation is issued?
Many of those, and I don't have the actual metrics on if it goes to notice of violation. I would say majority of them, once they get to courtesy notice, we're probably getting about I'm going to say 60 to 70% compliance rate. So it doesn't have to get to a notice of violation. And we do work with people so it doesn't get to the notice of violation. If they need a little more time, we're more than willing to go out there and extend the courtesy notice time to give them maybe a week or two to get things remediated. And then we'll go out and do a verification inspection and close it out before it gets to the notice of violation stage. This is a case profile we had for Bonanza Ranch. This was a case that goes back to, actually, this is one of the older cases. It goes back to 2011. It was first opened in 2011 under CV 110069. And what it was is we had a really bad property out in Templin Trail, which had a lot of issues with transients. There was a lot of unpermitted structures. There was people living in RVs, just people parking on the street with dilapidated vehicles. It was a really bad eyesore. We got several complaints from the residents of Bonanza Ranch. We were able to, and this is kind of an overview of it here. This is kind of what we were seeing. There was people living in RVs on the roadway. That's actually Templin Trail, vehicles there, people living in these shanty huts that they had built. This was after the cleanup had already started. The property was sold to a neighbor. They started the cleanup process. It took them several months to get everything out of there. Talking to the new owner, he said he removed over 86,000 pounds worth of garbage. It took him about 2.5 months of several trips to the transfer station to get rid of the trash on the property. This is kind of what it looks like now. It's been cleaned up. All the other structures have been removed, demolished off the property. And that's the area where the main residence was. So it's all been cleaned up. They did a fantastic job of cleaning that area. Now there's just a couple little trailers on the property.
That's where we are. I hope that's helpful. Let us know if you have questions or would like us to pursue things.
Commissioner Eberline? I do have just a couple. First of all, great job, because there's a little more to this story that you really haven't alluded to. And that is that by capturing these events and putting them into reports and looking where bottlenecks are and creating more efficiency has actually created an environment where the original staffing needs that you had before this process have actually gone down. And I think there's been a position or two that's been eliminated as a result of that. So kudos to you, because this is what operational efficiency is all about. It's about saving taxpayer money and being able to show people what they're getting with the tax dollars that they're paying into, or in this particular situation, the fees. There's nothing worse than paying fees and not getting decent service. And you're demonstrating that you're providing exceptional service. So kudos to you for that. A couple things that stood out. Zone changes. Did I see correctly that they've gone up?
Yes, correct.
And would there be a reason why we're changing the zones?
It's largely driven by the marketplace because zoning is an inexact science and needs to adjust over time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our zoning, you'll recall me saying, dates back to '73. And you can well imagine the marketplace has changed dramatically over that time frame. Like some of our major arterials or highways now have 4 times the traffic they used to. So 4 times as many people wanting to do things, and then coming to us to upzone, and like the case you experienced not too long ago with Vlad handling, where they wanted to do more on the property.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really outside of our control and a reflection of changes over time in the marketplace.
Would it be prudent that we start developing or updating our zoning maps to say that these parcels that may be zoned agricultural would have an automatic upzoning to, like, for example, commercial if they're on a major thoroughfare,
Yes,
where
sir.
commercial would make sense?
That would be some of the policy work that should come out of our comp plan update,
Okay.
is say those kinds of things, and then make it easy for the staff to come to you for changes in zoning.
So we can look forward to incorporating that into the upcoming comp plan revision. And then that way it can come before the board for us to look at, and of course the public.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a comment, but I really like the idea of having planners take walk-ins, because, a good application in the beginning makes for a much smoother process throughout. And it's a good opportunity to work with the folks who are submitting the applications, hear their concerns, and also look for inefficiencies on the front desk that could make things a lot easier on the back end. So kudos to you on that. And the only other thing is it seems like the code compliance or violations are going down. Is that correct? Or we're just not getting notified about them?
We're getting a little bit of both. They are going down, but a lot of times we're not getting notified on some of the things. We do get a lot of it through, obviously, it has to be a written complaint. A lot of people aren't willing to sign that written complaint. And a lot of these things, even though we may be aware of it, we can't do anything. There's times driving down and I see a violation and I can't technically write up a occupied RV on a property if I don't have a written complaint.
Yeah, and the only reason it stands out is that as more and more people move here, you would think that there would be a correlation of it going up. And I recognize that people who live here, they don't want to mess with other people. They don't want to create a problem. But there's also a reason why we have code, because we don't want to be in a situation, for example, if, was it creosote, is leaching into a stream and then coming onto your property, right?
Commissioners, I can speak to that because those calls come to me. In today's world, people are fearful of their neighbors. Some of that is a socioeconomic change that I've experienced over 45 years. It used to be, when I was a young man, that people were willing to come forward. Today, the best analogy I can give you is we have more rats in the sock and they are not getting along.
Yeah.
If you'll pardon the metaphor.
Well, I've never heard that one before, but it's always the
Hiding
first
like
time.
rats in a wool sock.
Yeah. Is there anything you could recommend this board look at to help address those kinds of issues?
The kinds of things you already do, where you have town hall meetings and let people talk, and you share your views and they share theirs. That's immeasurably important.
But I'm referring to just the violations themselves without it being in writing, but we know about it.
Commissioner,
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner George Spokler. What we've done is ask people if they do have some type of HOA or some type of association that maybe they can do that so that there's no individual person being assigned to it. We can accept it that way. So we try to urge people to at least to submit in that sense if they have that available to them.
And similarly, groups of people.
Groups of people, yes, sir.
We've suggested if you have 5 neighbors think like you and you all want to sign this, that works just fine. And that way they don't feel like they're on the hook and being singled out once their name becomes of record.
Yeah. Well, since most of the county is, obviously it's unincorporated and they tend not to have HOAs and things like that. That's why I'm just asking. It's a delicate balance you have to address, because you don't want it to be used as a bludgeon by one angry neighbor to get the county involved, right? On the flip side, you don't want to have people who are just, don't care about their neighbors. So I'd be anxious to hear any thoughts on that and see if it's something that the board could address in an equitable fashion. Assuming, and if the balance of the board agrees with it, then maybe we can look at something like that.
The one other thing I can think of you might consider is I have worked places where the staff was actually empowered when you see something in the field to write it up, so it doesn't have to be complaint driven only. That, of course, takes a certain degree of discretion and training, but there are municipalities that do it that way.
Okay.
George, one other thing that might be of note, that you were talking about how there's more administration of the actual consequences of violation and how that might be influencing behavior for future cases.
And that's correct. Since we've noticed a downtrend, since we have implemented more of the non-compliance fees, so people are more willing to do the right thing, if you will. Make sure they're getting all their permits in place prior to doing that, because non-compliance fees could be a little heavy sometimes. So, and we don't want to do that, but we have noticed that it has helped in people actually submitting for their permits and getting everything done and doing things prior,
Yeah.
instead of going and obviously getting a code violation in that sense.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Anything else? No? Okay, well, that concludes item 2. So 10:35, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner.